Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday to you on this May 12th, 2025. I have all your stories for your rush hour ride to work. And on this episode, we're going to discuss the Sycamore Gap Tree. Mother Nature got justice after Mother's Day when it came to finding out who felled the tree. It was illegally cut down in 2023, and justice has survived. There's actually a little bit of a good story following the tree that was cut down to a stump. We've also got some updates in the Bachelor Clayton story, as a source is now revealing that Laura Owens purchased HCG, of course, the hormone that indicates pregnancy, which is absolutely insane. I'll talk about what this source actually said. Plus, more on the Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni trial, which won't go down till March of 2026. But right now, we've got lots of motions in the oceans of the Blake Lively-Justin Baldoni sea. Blake Lively sends a letter to the judge. I'll read exactly what she said, looking for receipts. Why does Baldoni think he deserves $400 million? Well, we'll give an answer that they might deliver. And then the possible suspension of habeas corpus. What does this mean? This is a term you probably hear in movies, but they're now floating in the executive branch the idea that they may suspend it or find a way to, which would be horrible for our country. I'll explain that. Plus, the new Pope, Pope Leo, new Pope, wants a ceasefire in Gaza. He wants hostages returned. In his first Sunday speech, he is not shying away from the big worldly issues. And then we'll talk about the Air Force One bribe as Qatari royal family tries to gift Donald Trump a $400 million floating palace, and why some folks that are even MAGA folks like Laura Loomer are saying this is a terrible idea. All these stories and more, it's all coming up right now on The Rush. Well, two men were found guilty in the Sycamore Gap Tree felling. If you aren't familiar, this is the pride and joy. I mean, this tree has been featured in countless movies. It sits at the base of this glacier deposit. It's a 150-year-old tree, and we've actually got the video of the tree being cut down. Have a listen to this by BBC.
Under the cover of darkness, the world-famous Sycamore Gap Tree is cut down. It's filmed on Daniel Graham's phone. By morning, it's a crime scene.
If you could just clear back a tad.
And now they know who did it. Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers. It's been hard to think of a trial where the evidence against the defendants has been so overwhelming.
By the way, we'll have that information in the Bachelor Clayton trial where their evidence is so overwhelming. So whether it's the Sycamore Gap Tree or Laura Owens, justice will come out.
The video of the tree being cut down was filmed using Daniel Graham's phone. It also had a photo of a chainsaw in his car boot. Next to it was a wedge believed to be from the sycamore tree itself. And then Adam Carruthers sent a voice note to Daniel Graham, reveling, the prosecution said, in what they did the night before.
I'd like to see launch an operation like we did last night. I don't think he's got the minerals.
The camaraderie didn't last. This is a call Daniel Graham made to the police.
Adam Carruthers.
So you're saying that one of the lads that did it, Adam Carruthers, has got the chainsaws?
Yeah, and there's also a part of the tree.
So he's cut part of the tree?
I believe it to be the wedge of the tree, yeah.
Adam Carruthers said he thought the sycamore was just a tree. A monumental mistake both he and Daniel Graham will soon be sentenced for.
All right, so one guy snitches on the other. There's nothing just a tree. Why cut down a tree, you know? What did this tree ever do to you? Well, now here's the good news. This tree was cut down in 2023, but from the stump of the tree, a sapling has emerged. I mean, this is actually a heroic story. Sure, the tree of 150 years, it was ruined, but it just goes to show nature always finds a way. And nature finds a way to find justice, and we're finding that in the Bachelor Clayton paternity scandal. It's really a scam of epic proportion, of course. Laura Owens indicted on 7 counts, including perjury and different types of fraud. And now how about this? Breaking news from the All the Best Research and Timelines Twitter account. They've been covering the story, sleuthing around. They said this: "We have received information that Laura Owens allegedly ordered injectable HCG and had it delivered to her home via courier, and allegedly requested that there be absolutely no information on the box." Now, why is this interesting? Well, after it was Tuesday or whatever, when the 7 felony charges came out, Laura Owens, within days, responded with another press release on her lawyer's blog saying, I was pregnant and they can't take that away from me or whatever. And the truth is, up until now, she's been able to say, I tested up positive for 102, which is very minimal, by the way, guys. Usually that's just like your first couple of days of being pregnant. She faked being pregnant at levels in the 140,000s when she sent me the medical fraud. But the truth is, she knew she was going to test positive if she peed on a stick in front of Clayton. She knew it, to the point where she wasn't afraid to let him buy the pregnancy test. And for that, people always wondered, well, what could she have done? A, she could have just known she had that hormone in her body, or did she test positive for HCG because of fertility treatment, or for diet pills, or was it, some injectable she got from her horses at a vet clinic? Like, nobody knew. But now it's coming out. The sources say detectives told them someone may have spoofed the clinic's phone number to impersonate the business. Now, I had to ask about this, but that means someone would have spoofed the phone number. That means they would have used an app or a device to pretend to be a different phone number and sort of scammed Laura by sending her the HCG, but not from the actual clinic. So either way, this all came up because detectives told the clinic that text messages were found on Laura's phone showing orders placed through the clinic's number. The messages reference a courier service used for delivery. We don't use couriers. We only ship directly or offer in-office pickup. So either A, Laura was scammed, but still received the ACG from a pseudo clinic, or maybe the clinic itself has some dirty business going on and employees maybe deleted the evidence and that's why there's they don't have her in their database. I'm not really sure. I actually think it's more, I actually think it makes more sense that the employees at this clinic would try to hide the fact that they might have been giving someone HCG when they weren't prescribed for it. That's just a thought. But again, I have no idea. And I don't mean to besmirch the clinic here. But we're going to get more on this story. In fact, I may be having a video, I'm not sure yet, but I might have a video later today where I talk to a few experts that are behind the scenes, names not involved, right? They're going to be completely anonymous. And they're going to tell me, they've been looking at the financial crimes and the moving of finances from Laura, right? She has $180,000+ she owes Greg Woodnick, the attorney for Clayton Eckerd, and she's, moving her business finances around. She's taking her names off of some of her businesses. So the question is, will they be able to come after some of these businesses for that money? Because, she, obviously, pretended that she was worth all of this money. And then now when it comes time to pay up, she's nowhere to be found. So again, more on that. But here's an interesting part, right? So if it's true what this source says, and again, we'll find this all out from the detectives because whatever evidence they brought to the grand jury, we will get a chance to look at that when it becomes, due to the Freedom of Information Act request, we'll be able to FOIA that and find that all out. But here we have Laura Owens under oath responding to questions by Greg Woodnick, Zaddy Woodnick, as he's called, Clayton Eckerd's attorney. Laura claims in court under oath that she did nothing to alter her HCG. Just add that to her list of felony charges. Have a listen to this.
Did you do, regarding the Banner test, the day 11 test, or the day 21 test, those 3 tests, did you do anything at all to tamper with the results of those tests?
No.
Did you take any drugs, hormones, or any substance at all to affect the outcome?
No.
Did you use someone else's urine to change the outcome?
No.
Laura, there it is. She says no, but
she lied.
There it is, right? So again, this will be fascinating. Now, the question remains, was this part of the evidence they had when they charged her? Because she claims she tested positive for a pregnancy. But if they have the evidence that she bought HCG, doesn't that take away that claim? Did they have enough to use that as part of the felonies they're charging her with? And will they add more to what they're charged? They can just keep on adding things, right? If she decides that she's going to fraudulently or, move money around so she can avoid paying these things, doesn't that become a new charge they tack on? We'll have to see. All right, coming up next, Blake Lively versus Baldoni. Blake Lively wants to know why they think they lost $400 million in damages, make them prove it. I'm going to share the letter she wrote to the judge. That's coming next. Blake Lively's lawyers are asking a judge to force Justin Baldoni, Wayfair Studios, and others to hand over financial records, claiming that if they want to sue for $400 million, they have to prove they really lost that much. So here's the letter we've obtained from Blake Lively to Judge Lehman. On behalf of Blake Lively, we write pursuant to rule, and then they get into all the jumbo. And they say, seeking materials relevant to their collective and specific demand for at least $400 million in damages against Ms. Lively. Prior to filing this motion, counsel for Ms. Lively met and conferred with counsel for the Wayfair parties, but the Wayfair parties have refused to produce the documents requested in the financial RFPs, committing only to produce non-privileged documents concerning their damages, rather than comply with the RFPs actually served. To make matters worse, the Wayfair parties refused to divulge even the most basic information relating to their collection efforts, which apparently are still underway, and have left Ms. Lively completely in the dark with respect to what documents and information may be in their possession. Now look, obviously when you work in entertainment, it's hard to prove what you're losing, because what you're really losing is future job opportunities, right? If I ran a company that, let's say, I don't know, Blockbuster, and you stood in front of Blockbuster and just said, this guy's the worst, he does all these crazy things, and then no one shows up at Blockbuster, I can show that the sales for Blockbuster dip, right? It would be pretty obvious. And then you could argue, no, the sales for Blockbuster dipped because everyone moved to Netflix, but that's a different story. Now, with Baldoni, it's like, look, sure, did they make $250 in revenue from this movie? A lot goes to Sony and a bunch of different places. Sure, yeah, they made a lot of money. But will Justin Baldoni work again? Not likely. And what does that do for Steve Sarowitz, the billionaire who invested all this money into the company that now is sunk, right? So again, maybe the damages isn't $400 million. Maybe it's $60 million. Really, I have no idea how they came up with that number. And I think it'll be interesting to see what they say about that, because whether it's $400 million or $90 million or whatever the number is, clearly there are damages if Blake's story wasn't truthful, and if she made up, and bent, all of these allegations into the direction of her being this colossal victim of this whole story. So we'll wait and see. I mean, all these letters are going to the judge. I'm stressed out on behalf of this judge. He's got so many motions to respond to. There's a lot to get into. And again, subpoenas to Taylor Swift, subpoenas to, again, we'll have to see if they go out to, people like Hugh Jackman and other people that might be involved, and then depositions. So a lot to get into right now, and they're still arguing over, so many different aspects of this. I think you need the judge needs, we need to Postmate him some caffeinated beverages. He needs a Celsius energy drink sponsorship. Get this guy some, Adderall. I don't know. but honestly, we'll have to see. I'm sure this week will provide new aspects to the story we haven't even begun to think about yet, involving, where this, will there be new evidence that comes out? I personally don't think anything new is going to come out, but the fact that they got these subpoenas, they're going to be looking for whatever they can get from both sides. So we'll have to wait and see. All right, let's move it away from that silly stuff to some more, interesting stuff. The suspension of habeas corpus, which is taking your rights away. So here's Stephen Miller. He's like the sort of behind the scenes of all of the bad things that are happening in the government right now. The guy is scary bad. So habeas corpus, a writ of habeas corpus, is used to bring a prisoner or other detainees to court to determine if the person's imprisonment or detention is lawful. A habeas petition proceeds as a civil action against the state. So what it means is it's due process. Habeas corpus is due process. Here's why they are looking into suspending habeas corpus.
Well, the Constitution is clear, and that, of course, is the supreme law of the land, that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not. At the end of the day, Congress passed a body of law known as the Immigration and Nationality Act, which stripped Article III courts, that's the judicial branch, of jurisdiction over immigration cases. So Congress actually passed, it's called jurisdiction stripping legislation.
Done. So here's the deal, right? To somebody who doesn't know law and doesn't, and you just, all right, he looks smart, right? He's got a suit on that fits well. His little, forehead's furrowing in the right place. He looks like, well, the writ of corpus states this. Listen, none of what they've said has held up in court, right? The Supreme Court ruled 9-0 to send Abrego Garcia back, right? And Stephen Miller is the guy who told Trump that they won 9-0. And everybody that was sitting in the Oval Office let that happen. Not one person was up and said, Stephen Miller is wrong, President Trump. Not one person did that. And what they're trying to do is basically like bend the laws in their direction, kind of like how Coach Belichick used to do that with the Patriots. On the Patriots, Belichick was a master when it came to knowing the rule book, and he would exploit random rules and loopholes to benefit the team. But here's the difference. That's effing football, okay? And that's not the United States of America. So they want to suspend habeas corpus by saying that there's an invasion happening, right? That's why they said there's this war on fentanyl. And because there's a war on fentanyl, we need to do all of these different tariffs, which, by the way, then they claimed the border's never been more secure. Okay, well, is it secure or is there a war on fentanyl? Which one is it? Same thing is happening with these gangs, right? Tren de Aragua, did I say that right? The gangs from Venezuela. They're saying that the Venezuelan government are running these gangs. Therefore, this is an act of war and we can use these wartime measures. So what invasion are they talking about? There is no invasion happening. But if they claim there's an invasion, they're going to claim they can get rid of habeas corpus. And that's not just for illegal immigrants. That's for everybody. Because if you don't give anyone the right to due process and the right to go in front of a judge to discuss whether or not you've been rightfully or wrongfully detained, then we all lose rights. It seems pretty obvious, doesn't it? So anyway, let's move on to another story here. This one's absolutely insane. This is the story of President Trump. A breaking news story came out. I believe ABC broke it, that a government was planning or is planning on giving Trump a brand new plane to be used as an Air Force One. It's a floating palace. Have a listen to this.
CNN has just confirmed that the Trump administration plans to accept a luxury jet from the Qatari royal family that will then be retrofitted and used as Air Force One for the remainder of President Trump's second term. Now, this is highly unusual, and it's raised a lot of questions about, one, whether it's legal, and two, whether it is ethical for the president to accept such a massive gift from a foreign government. Now, this is a plane that President Trump has actually toured previously. It was parked at Palm Beach Airport earlier this year. The president and his aides had a tour. I was told that after, the president was boasting to people about how nice and luxurious the plane was. And technically speaking, we're told how this will happen is that the Qatari Ministry of Defense will transfer the plane to the Pentagon. Now, the Pentagon will be in charge of retrofitting it and modifying it to make it useful for a president. It's raised many questions, and of course this comes as President Trump is headed to the Middle East this week, and that includes a stop in Doha.
Now listen, I went to Doha last year. I was in Qatar, and I got to tell you, I got a lot of trash talking to do about Qatar, and I don't have time right now to do it, but I was not a fan. Now, was the subway system beautiful? Yes. Is the country extremely wealthy? Absolutely. But there's a lot of sketchiness that comes with that. A lot of sketchiness. And this is just flat out wrong. So much so that, check this out, Donald Trump responded. He says, so the fact that the Defense Department is getting a gift free of charge of a 747 aircraft to replace the 40-year-old Air Force One temporarily in a very public and transparent transaction so bothers the crooked Democrats that they insist we pay top dollar for the plane. Anybody can do that. The Dems are the world-class losers. Make America great again. And that's, first of all, one of Donald Trump's biggest cheerleaders is calling him out right now, Laura Loomer. She says, I love President Trump. I would take a bullet for him. weird, but I have to call a spade a spade. We cannot accept a $400 million gift from jihadists in suits. The Qataris fund the same Iranian proxies at Hamas and Hezbollah who have murdered U.S. service members, the same proxies that have worked with the Mexican cartels to get jihadists across our border. This is really going to be such a stain on the administration if this is true. And I say that as someone who would take a bullet for Trump. I'm so disappointed. Did you hear yet? She would take a bullet for Trump. And by the way, a stain on the administration. Yes, this would be a stain on the administration, but when you're in the middle of a food fight, you're not going to notice a stain, right? There's already a lot of nonsense going on. But what's interesting is people are saying, how is this even fair? You know, there's people that, that say they worked in the government and they couldn't even take a $20 lunch for free. Bernie Sanders responds, I don't know who needs to hear this, but no, Donald Trump cannot accept a $400 million flying palace from the royal family of Qatar. Not only is this farcically corrupt, it is blatantly unconstitutional. Congress must not allow this over-the-top kleptocracy to proceed. Now look, first of all, not to mention, would this even be a secure plane? You'd have to strip it down to its bare bones to make sure there's no bugs in it or any spying happening. And even at that point, is it even worth what it was when they gave it to you? So look, a plane, the Air Force One, it's meant for a safe and secure way for the president and the press and whoever else is with them to get around the country, right? That's what it's meant for. And yet Trump has found a new way to spray paint gold, to airbrush his way across, the skies with his massive ego. I mean, it's not legal. And yet you'll have people in my comments and in others saying, oh, more Trump derangement syndrome. But again, find me a situation where someone so blatantly, so obviously, and so transparently was willing to accept bribes, and they're doing it in plain sight. When Trump said he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and no one would care, this is the type of stuff they're talking about. And by the way, if you're wondering why this is such a bad idea, it's not just that he would have this for his presidency, it's that he would keep it after he leaves office. The plane would then be transferred, and the rights to the plane, I guess, would be transferred to Trump's presidential library. What is it? It's not going to sit at the library for you and I to flick snots at. No, it's going to be used by Trump afterwards and his family. And I think they showed a stat that the family has gained something like $2.9 billion in wealth since this presidency started 3 months ago. This is absolute insanity out there. Do you remember a time when people would get mad at Bernie Sanders because he has a second home? Do you remember that? Bernie Sanders is like a millionaire. He's worth a couple $1 million because he's been in Congress for 40 years and he wrote a book and he's, bestseller. And they're going, oh, he's worth $1 million. It's the lack of intellect for people to understand the difference between a billion, a million, or a trillion. And $2+ billion in wealth transferred, and that we know of, not including whatever amount has been bought in the Trump meme coin. It's bribery that's done in plain sight. They're just letting it happen. All right, in other news, the Trump administration did meet with China. The Trump administration says they have a deal. China has not said that yet, but here's the report.
The White House is announcing they've reached a trade deal with China after negotiations in Switzerland this weekend, but they aren't offering any details. And the White House isn't saying if either country has agreed to lower their tariffs. Remember, there are currently 145% tariffs on Chinese goods, and China has retaliated with 125% tariffs on American goods. But China is not calling this a done deal. In a press conference, Beijing said the two sides made substantial progress and will continue trade talks, but said the details still need to be finalized.
All right, well, there it is. So White House says they got a deal, and China's like, well, I don't know about that. So again, I'm happy to report how that turns out, but we'll have to see how the White House bends. Whatever deal happens, we'll have to see how they bend that into a gigantic victory. Now, this is a big story I want to share. This is big for the world. There are starving people, many kids right now in the Gaza area, the war-torn Gaza area. There's also a bunch of hostages there that have not been released, Israeli hostages. And here we have in his first Sunday Mass, Pope Leo XIV calls for peace in Ukraine and Gaza. So let's have a listen to this. Now, I don't know, I'm assuming he's speaking in Italian here, but there are subtitles. So I will read the subtitles when they pop up.
Mi addolora profondamente quanto accade nella striscia di Gaza.
Let the fire cease immediately. Let humanitarian aid be quickly provided to the exhausted civilian population, and may all hostages be freed. There it is. Now, I've said this before. I said this over the weekend when I talked to our friend who's a theologian. If you haven't, go check out that episode. But why can't they do more? You know, they obviously in your sermon you say, you know, we want peace in the Middle East. We want the children to be fed. But it's like, why? And I understand that humanitarian aid has been bombed, but why can't they just, you know, multiple countries get together and just go in there and feed them? You know, this is just a plea as someone who has no ability. But if I had the ability to send helicopters full of food and parachute them down, I know they're trying to do this. I'm just saying, send so much food, you know, that they can't possibly blow it all up, right? Get them the food. I don't know how else to say that. It's so sad. It's so sad every time you see a photo of a starving child and know that we, in this world we live in, full of abundance, can't feed them. Make it happen. All right. Well, boy, did we cover a lot today. And it's only the beginning of the week. We'll have a lot to get into. I got videos coming your way on YouTube, so check those out. Don't forget to follow me, The Rush Hour with Dave Neal, on Instagram, DNeals on Instagram, and also on TikTok at DNeals. And we'll have some short form content for you. You can, you know, share it with all your friends and all of that jazz. We appreciate it. Plus, I'll be live this morning on Patreon, patreon.com/Dave Neal. We'll see you there for all the breaking news updates. I'm Dave, and this is The Rush.